Hi, welcome to the Confessions in the Home Office podcast. I'm Wendi Hill, and I've been running and growing my marketing consulting company, Market Momentum, out of my home office in Greenville, South Carolina for almost 20 years. Each week on the podcast, I discuss an important marketing topic or work from home topic, or have a guest who can give you other perspectives on being an entrepreneur and provide information on other industries.
So this week, our guest is Liz Dwyer. She's been a friend of mine now for almost a year? Didn't we meet last November at that Flourish event
Yeah.
over off Woodruff Road? And I'm fascinated with Liz because she is a connection expert, networking expert, and she hasn't even lived in the upstate that long. But I wanted her to come on today and talk about kind of the magic of multiple revenue streams. Liz has been not employed by anyone and has been living off multiple revenue streams, she said, since 1994. So I don't even think I understood that concept back in 94. So I'm glad you're here today, and wanted to ask, how did you initially to decide to do this instead of having a traditional 9 to 5?
Well, first off, thank you, Wendi, for having me on your podcast. I love it.
Of course.
And yes, it's been a pleasure to get to know you in the last year or so and further. So for me, I went to school like any good kid growing up. Your parents tell you got to go to college, get a good job, stay in your same career. It's going to be great. Get a good pension. My dad was the manager of a power plant, so very good business person. Now my dad's a nuclear engineer, my mom's an artist, so I have two brains that are always working to find cohesive balance. With that, my dad also said, you're not always going to enjoy everything you do in life. And I went, yes, I will. I wanted to defy that statement. So anyway, I went to college early. So I started college at 17. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. Originally, I wanted to be a writer, but that changed in 11th grade. So I quickly put together a portfolio of art, and I was going to art school. I have a family of artists that have actually made their living at art. And so I went to school for art and business. I felt like I would probably be in business for myself. I don't know why, but I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And I did, I waitressed for a number of years through high school and college. I mowed the lawn. I did other people's like gardening and things like that. So I always was about making money, and whatever I put my hands to, it needed to have a result. It either needed to help somebody else or it needed to bring a revenue in. So with that said, my first job out of college as a graphic designer was for a nice fella out of his home. It was perfect. I was shy, I was quiet, but I was a good graphic designer. I had that for 3 years, and then all of a sudden he laid me and the other worker off. He felt terrible to do that. And I quickly had to scramble, go find something else. So I went after my dream job. Be careful about your dream job. It was not. Yeah. Ended up working a nighttime. It was like a 2 to 11 shift. Oh, awful. That lasted 2 weeks because I quickly found out that was not my dream job. And I would be missing dinners with my husband, and it would not be, you didn't get your own time, right? So I was experiencing what corporate America was. Then I get my next job. I worked 2 jobs at the same time, and that one was great. I had my own 4th floor, three rooms to my office. It was right next to the break room, so people would come and visit. Well, they also went eat, 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 eat. So I learned that not everybody's happy, and there was a revolving door in that establishment. It was a PR firm. I basically hit my head. I was the designer. I was the sole designer. I hit my head on the ceiling so hard it hurt. I didn't know what to ask for a salary. I just didn't know what I didn't know. And so a year goes by and they're laying 5 people out of 25 off. And I went, that's not good. I'm got to be one of them in my head. And so at Christmas time, the owners went away on a trip across the sea. And they left the HR person to the ex-woman to actually lay off these people. And I just thought it was terrible. It was corporate America at its finest. And I had already opened up a DBA. I wanted to be my own business person. I was already doing the bookkeeping for our lawn care business. That was one of my longtime 30-year careers, is running a lawn care business. And I saw what it's like to work for yourself. Yes, it's hard work, and you got to be disciplined. And there's a lot of things you got to come up with. You got to come up with money and licenses and equipment and everything. But I love the freedom that you had. You can go on vacation when you want. Well, kind of. You got to plan it. But you can take time off when you need it. You can take time off for the big rocks. So at that point, I had my DBA, and I walked down to the HR office, and I said, I know I'm getting laid off. And she said, no, you're not getting laid off. I guess I didn't want to lose the designer. And
Absolutely.
I didn't realize how bad. They didn't make me feel valuable. So I knew I did good work. But this is what I said to myself, Wendy. I will not lay myself off. I will be the best employee for me. And that I offered them a nice deal to actually do the same work from my home office. And that was, my whole idea was to be a stay-at-home mom and have a career too. So I was working towards that. It was several years later that I had my kids, but that was it. I was going to be the best employee for myself. It took so real quick, the reason looking back, I didn't realize it. It was the 90s. And we were in a recession. I guess I missed it in macro and microeconomics. But now you can see those cycles. We are in one right now, and terrible one right now. And there's layoffs happening everywhere. There is people having to change jobs 2-3 times a year. They're scrambling. So I know that now. I just didn't understand it at that time.
Right. So the first revenue stream was, I'm going to be an independent graphic designer. So that was the first one. So take us from there. What happened next? So you're working for the lawn company, and
so we owned that lawn company. So right. I did actually 1 year I actually mowed I had my own crew and I went out and mowed lawns. At the same time, I have a very entrepreneurial aunt and cousin that own a company called Creative Connections. They help artists be licensed in the art world. So puzzle companies and card companies and tote bags. And so my aunt had always looked for a way for her art friends and herself to actually protect the artists. And it worked right up my alley because I was a graphic designer and an artist. To protect the art from being sold, and then the artist has to give up the rights to it. So it's called a license. Right. It's also creates a repeat or residual income. And this was my first taste of repeat income. So my aunt, this was cute. She would come up to New York City. We lived just outside of New York City. And she'd stay with my mom and my cousin. And we'd go down to the Javits Center. And I wasn't afraid to drive. So I would drive them into the city and then back home. And during the day, they paid me $100 for the day. And my job was to walk around all the booths, discover the trends at the Surtex show, and also draw people to our booth where we had 15 to 20 artists hanging up on the walls. And what they did is then they got those artists connected to the people who made the products and created the license agreement for a fee. But the artists didn't have to market themselves. We did the marketing for them. So it was technically my first sales job because I was scared of sales. But when you're passionate about what you like, then, well, it's easy to sell something that you believe in and you're passionate. So that actually led to my art. So there's one hanging up behind me here, one of my paintings. So my aunt said to me that first year, she goes, Liz, why don't you put together a board? Next year, we'll put it on the wall and see what interest we get. Well, I went back that next year. So this was my next gig, you could say. And it was pretty cool because I went back with several different designs, all different types. And there was a fellow from California that said, who's this artist? He was talking to my cousin or my aunt, I think my aunt. And he said, does she have more of these flowers? There were a flower and a butterfly. And she goes, well, here she is. This is my niece. So he comes to me and he says, young lady, because I was in my 20s, and he goes, do you have more of these? I said, no. He said, well, if you have a series of 6 or more, I will come back and I will be happy to purchase that as a license. I had my first idea or commission. It wasn't really a commission, but it was you do this, you will make money. And I ended up doing 12 paintings. They got licensed into t-shirt transparencies. That was the fella, where you go on the boardwalk and you match the
Right.
art and the t-shirt together. Right. And every month I'd get anywhere from $50 to $150, just a check coming in on the art. And that was so cool.
It's nice to do the work, and then you just keep reaping the benefits from it over and over again.
Because there's a lot of ways to get paid as an artist, right? You can hang your art up in a gallery, but then when you sell it, you got to go make another piece.
Right.
And then it gets hung again. So this was a very creative way to create an income for really good art. You got to create the right art, but when you do, it keeps selling.
So after art, what else? I know you're still doing art and doing classes and selling art now. What else is going on?
So there was a big gap there, Wendy. It was interesting. So one of the big things that happened to me was 9/11. My graphic design and business literally disintegrated overnight. And right. I was owed $10,000 at the time. They said, Liz, we're not getting paid. The reason why it was a problem, I was in New York. I worked for the New York State PAC and New England Laborers. I did their 4-color magazine work. Everything froze, right? Everything froze in the city. And but to not have that income coming in and the work you did, it wasn't just losing a job. I lost revenue from like 5 months. And I, for the first time, had to ask for money. I'm like, can you pay me? And they're like, Liz, we haven't been paid. We can't pay you. I didn't have any good fancy contracts either. So I didn't know lawyers yet. Now they would. But even so, I wanted a good, they were still giving me new work. But what was happening was all the work was drying up. People were shifting at 9/11. So I had a son and a daughter now, and my son had really bad eczema. And I had been shopping from a wellness club, and I just wanted to use the safer products. And it drew me in. But it's actually a business too. So there's a referral piece to it. Instead of using advertisers, they use their customers. And I was getting a little check every month. So it kind of spoke to me that, this could actually create an income, right? And so 9/11, I'm like, why not? Let's just go for it. And I actually had my art going, and I had the lawn care business, I had the graphic business, and I added this income stream in. So I had 4 things, 2 little kids. My life was a little crazy.
Kind of crazy, but still fun,
It was still fun. So you start to find the balance, right? And I'm so glad. What I said to myself was I was very fearful because I was afraid of sales. And I said, if I don't try this, if I don't do my best and give this my best shot, not try, but actually give it my best shot, I'd kick myself in 5 years.
Right.
And I looked back 5 years later, I had gone so far down the path. I think I had 1,200 shoppers in my business at that point. And it was just doing amazing things. And it created a peaceful life, especially as a mom. So what did I get to do? I got to devote my time to raising my kids, to taking care of them, to actually helping in the lawn care business, which was our family business. It also gave me the freedoms to be there before and after school, except on Wednesday mornings. That's my networking day.
And it still is. Networking on Wednesdays, right?
Yeah.
I remember you told me that.
Exactly. So that was kind of a big shift. But you can look back at these micro moments in your life when shifts happen. For me, getting laid off twice in my 20s, pouring everything. This was my business. I loved my graphic business. I thought I would do that forever, and I was good at it. But something shifted again, and I looked at, what happens when the economy goes bad? What happens when something out of your control takes it? And I wanted something recession proof. I wanted something that would be long term, that would feed me for a lifetime, not a lunchtime. And I think multiple income streams it's having your plan B, right? Always got to have a plan B in place.
So when did you start really working the wellness store hard and building shoppers? What year was that?
So that was in 2000. Well, December of 2001. was
Okay.
my start. And that first year, it was probably 10 to 15 hours a week, which isn't all that much, but it was dedicated to
Right.
that business. But it was perfect for me because if I did it 24/7, I think I would have gone crazy because for one, I didn't know that many people. So you have to learn skill sets, right? There's skill sets you have to learn when you're in business. So you're always sharpening the saw. You're always going to get better at how to add contacts, how to be a good connector, right? You started this off saying, I connect. Well, I learned that from a couple mentors.
Right.
I watched how they did business, how they connected people in different industries and helped them get better at whatever their business is. So when you can actually help other people, they turn around and they help you. But you also have to learn how to ask for what you want. I think that's another key piece.
Well, that's what I met a friend this morning at Starbucks and we were talking about that. I said, some people read like murder mysteries on the weekends and do stuff. And I said, I'm like finishing up online classes and digging around, trying to learn things. I said, it's kind of like the nerd hobby, but you can't stop if you want to keep getting better and keep growing. So that's just part of it. And I don't mind it at all,
And there's free resources. Friday, there was the power panel. I just did a post about it, a live video, just how good it was. And you're learning from people that have already gone through what you'll go through being an entrepreneur. And you don't know when your heart is. You don't know when the tough times. I'm no longer in New York. I left New York 2 years ago with my boyfriend. We went through the hardest thing and that anybody could go through. He went through a congestive heart failure and needed a heart replacement. In 90 days, me at his side and the team of doctors and God, definitely God was in there, helped him to get a new heart where that gift was amazing. And he wants to pay it forward. So he gives back to the local helping vets organization here. And we now do the business together. I'm the one that he said, Liz, I want you to do your wellness store, but I also want you to do your artwork. So I had this long gap of not doing art. And since we've been here in Greenville, all the doors have opened. I now teach art classes, watercolor classes 3 different times a week. I do dog portraits. I'm doing my commissioned work, the work that I talked about earlier. That's part of it. And I just got a new gig. We had 24 students one night at the City Club.
Really? I did see that you were going to teach at the City Club or have a session there. 24?
24 came out. So that was my biggest class. We had so much fun.
Yeah, everything is open up. Because you didn't, the two of you didn't know anybody when you moved here, did you? You just said, Greenville sounds great. We want to go south. And you took off.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and there's no secret to it. It's like I said, it's just so much easier to know that you're in control of your destiny when you be the best employee of whatever job you have. Right. Learn, grow, treat it like it's your business. That's how you get ahead. I will tell you, we didn't have to worry about money when we were in the hospital. It's dig your well before you're thirsty. I just went to a seminar recently. Dig your well before you're thirsty. I get a repeat income. It's enough to pay the bills and a little bit more. Right. We were in the hospital for 90 days. There was a month going into the problem, and there was 3 more months afterwards that was recovery. And I wasn't the one recovering, right? It was all on him. Right. So I didn't have to worry about money. I didn't have to worry about a job to report into. So I set my own hours. He was a diesel mechanic. His boss was amazing. I didn't even know who this man was. He also is a self-made, you could say self-made millionaire. He owns a couple of dealerships. He's just a very generous person. Well, Gerald had worked very hard for him. And just whenever things needed to be done, Gerald did them. He worked the back shop with the diesels. Well, do you know that this gentleman, he actually kept Gerald as if he was still employed the whole time he was in the hospital?
Wow. Talk about a load of stress being gone, especially when it's a heart situation like that.
And if you don't have your health insurance intact, they won't give you a heart. They can't. You have to have insurance. So if you work a regular job, you haven't created a wealth of income, either you're going to dip so much into your savings, but you got to keep your insurance going. So he kept the insurance going for that full first year until we moved into Greenville and we reestablished ourselves here. So we were so grateful to have dug our well before we're thirsty. We're digging a new well right now because that's what you do. You've got to go. And we didn't know anybody, so we're taking a vacation to Myrtle Beach. I looked at Gerald and I said, "We need people. How are we going to meet people? We know nobody." And he goes, "We're going to go to church and bingo."
No truer words ever spoken,
I'm like, okay, I've never done that quite for that reason. So I'm like, well, we need other resources. But anyway, we did end up going to church. Fantastic church. We did end up going to bingo, local tavern. So much fun. So he spoke it. We did it. But we also just got involved in the community. There's lots of networking available all over. You just look it up on Facebook, Eventbrite, LinkedIn. Ask people in business, where do you go to find people? How do you network? Right. And then just be a really good listener when you're networking. Listen to what other people's pain points are. Don't be selling, because that's not, if we're always selling to them, they're going to run away from you. But be giving, give resources, give connections, be authentic to them. And everybody has a need. And if you know enough people, you're going to be able to solve each other's problems with the right connections.
Well, and when you're talking to somebody and you're genuinely listening, I can't talk today, you start hearing their challenges and they start opening up, and next thing you know, you might have somebody you can refer them to, or maybe you're just an ear. So that's smart. What strategies have you found that are most effective for managing your time and energy across art, wellness, everything?
Yeah, so it's managing your emotion and energy, I think, is probably number one. And, getting yourself right every day, which is always a work in progress. Time blocking, I'm a student of time blocking. I've not mastered it. It is. So I say energy, I know when my best times of the day are. And I take those little wins and they build into bigger wins. Meaning, and that really doesn't answer the question of how do you do multiple things. They all kind of connect together. I do a little pet sitting for some folks, and that actually leads me to more people who like dogs. Well, that leads me to dog portraits, which leads me to more commissions. That also is a funnel to invite people or make connections for them into my the wellness world or into the networking world. I ask questions. So the key is I learned how to be listening, but also be communicative, right? So it's having a conversation with someone and finding out, a little bit about them. In this area, where'd you move from? Oh, you're a native. Oh, wow. Tell me where you grew up. So, do you have kids? Do you have hobbies? And you just create conversations. And if you're creating enough conversation, you're going to find a need or something like, I was one of the dog sit clients. She has a salon. She actually cuts hair. So I'm working on getting with her to help her get connected to a local network in her town to give her more opportunity for her business. And she, of course, asked me what I do. We haven't even chatted about that, but that will come. And so it's one of the strategies is if you're working a 9 to 5, then your networking is a little bit limited.
Right.
Now, you could do a job where you are networking for that job, though. So a lot of businesses need networking. So you don't double dip, but you are still making connections and meeting people. You're going to find out about them for whatever job you're doing. Down the way, you might be able to share with them on your other business that you have.
Right.
So that's a strategy, is not to come to people with too many things.
Right. Mm-hmm. So how have you managed any challenges? I mean, I'm sure this hasn't been smooth sailing the whole time that you've been doing this. So it sounds like
Gerald.
You're very strategic about things like with pet sitting, pet portraits. I mean, that's all fascinating how you've gotten that figured out. But tell us about a time where things have besides Gerald, we know the whole heart transplant, that was insane. Just kind of day to day, when you run into issues with keeping everything together, what's the situation been and how did you get through it?
Fantastic question. So again, a student on that one. And on the power panel, I asked that exact question to the people, the panelists,
Oh, okay.
which was so much fun because I got lots of good. The answers were excellent, and their answers primarily were creating a habit or a routine, a personal habit that keeps them healthy in mind and body. And it might be exercise, it might be meditation, it might be taking a walk every day, it might be just spending some quiet time with yourself. So for me, what I have learned helps me kind of get out of a funk. I call it a funk. Is I'll go for a jog. I actually love doing like an hour, 45-minute to an hour run, and that clears my head. It actually gets me in my kind of my zone. I'll sift through things that might be going on, and if I start to slow down my pace, I'm like, well, that's getting out of my life. If my pace picks up, I'm like, ooh, that's a good. So I'm all about energy for myself. Right. And sometimes I'll just need to just take a break from everything. And that's one of the nice things of having multiple things that you do. And for me, dipping into my artistic side, not the autistic, but the artistic side, is really helpful because it's the creative energy. And when I'm creating, everything's abundant. So, so for me, it's like, all right, well then, and this is where I say Gerald's really helpful because he'll say, why don't you go do your art? Go get doing one of those paintings. And so, so like this week I set an intention of over the next 10 weeks to change or adopt one new habit a week. And it takes about 6 weeks to get a new habit established. Okay. So I figure if I start 3 or 4 each week, by the end of 10 weeks.
Yeah.
But I'm making those habits something that I enjoy doing. I'm not making them hard. I'm making them things that are joyful, which is picking up a paintbrush and doing art for myself 1 hour a day. Not watercolor classes, not this or that, but actually picking up a paintbrush and actually painting. So yesterday I sketched for about 2 hours. And so today I plan to get the backgrounds done, so just adding it in. And when you're developing a habit, you're going to fail. You're going to fall down. You're not going to stick with it. But when you fall off, you got to jump right back on and stick with it if it's that important to change.
That's good advice. I'm trying to think of all the different things, like by the end of the year, different habits I can add. Oh my gosh, I need to think through that. So if somebody's watching this and they say, I'm tired of 9 to 5, I want to get into multiple revenue streams, what's like the first piece of advice you would give them?
My first would be, discover what your passions. Take a little time to write down your passions, or just take a little time to think. What brings you joy? What makes you happy? And what makes you happy in the current job, right? Of what you're doing. Maybe there's pieces of what you do you love. Maybe that's a career you want to actually develop yourself. But it's really and then I would talk to as many entrepreneurs as you can and see what's out there. Because a lot of people feel like it's safe to be at a 9 to 5. Yeah. It's not safe. You're working for someone else. They're under the gun. Yep. And that whatever you're doing might be gone. It's my dad's idea that you can work hard at the same career and have a pension. Those days are not here anymore.
Well, I learned that lesson in my own business. I mean, so early on, I had like 2 or 3 clients, and that was it. They were bigger clients, and they took up all my time. Well, now it's like, now I have like 15 clients, and it's diced up because somebody could go away, somebody could retire, somebody could die, and it's over.
Yeah. Yep. And when you have your client base, don't think that's your forever client base. You're always going to have to be adding in because something's going to change.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. People retire, people change their mind, people hire someone full time. I mean, you just never know on a Monday what the week's going to be.
Right.
So.
Right. So it's always nice to have another avenue where you can lean on, which just, it helps. And I kind of look at like things in $500 and $1,000 increments.
Okay.
Just not to get too much into money,
that's what works.
but the mortgage costs $1,500, right? The
Right.
the auto costs $500, the electric bill costs $200 or $250. So I think of what the bills are, and then I look at, instead of being like, oh, there's that money in the bank account and it's all got to go out, right? Because that's painful, right? You worked hard to get that in.
Yeah.
Look at what that money, time to put into the money, right? So whatever it is that you've created or you're working for, let's say it's a side gig and it can bring in $500 a month. Well, where does that $500 go? What does that pay for? Maybe you got all your bills paid for. Maybe it's just saving for that rainy day, right? An emergency fund. Or maybe it's putting money aside so you can have your first business. I actually, I smoked cigarettes for 6 years. You can't even imagine me smoking a cigarette, but I did. My teens into my early 20s. I wanted to quit the day I started. It was a very challenging thing to do, was to quit smoking. When I succeeded, I told myself this, and it was actually the beginning of a new year. I said, I'm going to save so much money, I'm going to buy my first computer. In 3 months, I had enough money to buy my G3 Mac.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I think everybody thinks about money differently, but if that works for you, of having these pockets and this will pay for this and this will pay for this, it keeps you motivated.
When it takes the emotion out of the money part of it, I think everybody, I have to do that. Otherwise I get tied up in it. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to teach, 5 watercolor classes this month. This is going to do this for me. And so then I enjoy teaching the classes. So therefore I don't feel pain when the money goes out.
Right. Well, is there anything else that you want us to know?
I think, let's see, advice would be follow your heart, dig your well before you're thirsty. So why not you? Why not go after a business? Because it is really joyful to have something that you can call your own, that you created, and that you're in the driver's seat of.
So if somebody wants to get in touch with you through the wellness store, what's your URL for the wellness store?
So We the Patriots with an S shop.com/Liz. We the Patriots shop.com/Liz. Or they can also email me at lizdwyerwellness@gmail.com.
I'll put it in the show notes too.
Perfect.
That's good. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for being on here. I learned a little more about you today. There are many layers to Liz and many revenue streams. So I love it.
Thank you, Wendi.
Okay, great. Well, this is it for this week from Confessions from the Home Office, and we'll be back next week. Thanks, Liz. I'll see you later.